I have cracked the code. I have figured out how to hold and use a controller with back paddles. Since the paddle design on the PowerA Fusion Pro is similar to that of the Xbox Elite controller, my recommended grip should work on either. It'll work with any controller with back paddles and even on controllers without any back paddles. So I've had this controller for a few days now, and I really wanted to like the back paddles, but they just felt strange in my hands, and I was performing poorly in Apex Legends. I was ready to give up entirely and remove the back paddle module, but then I tried a new grip that has allowed me to take advantage of the paddles while taking away the strange feeling of holding a controller with back paddles. I also recommend this grip for health reasons. I noticed that some of my grips I was experimenting with were stressing my fingers and hands. So this is how I normally hold a controller. This gives good stability when I need to perform a lot of quick actions with the analog sticks. It also feels very natural for your hands, which is important. All controllers are designed assuming you create stability and grip with the fingers. Now, paddles add a lot of functionality, which lets you compete better with mouse and keyboard players, but the paddles get in the way of your fingers, so you can't tightly wrap your fingers around the grip. Holding a controller with paddles feels very powerful, but also very unergonomic. I'm going to show you how to solve this problem. Now, if I hold this controller like I normally would, I would instinctively create stability and grip with my fingers, but I can't because of the paddles. As a result, I don't have enough stability for moving and aiming, and also these extra buttons are hard for my brain to process. It's almost like starting all over again in Apex Legends. I had to relearn how to play in the sense. But I figured out you don't actually need to wrap your fingers around the grip at all to use a controller effectively. You can leave all of your fingers off of the bottom of the grip and stabilize the controller by placing pressure on the sides with your palms. I put the controller in my lap for extra stability. And if you only use paddles on one side like myself, you can hold the left side normally and use the modified grip on the right side. This new grip literally only took me a few minutes to get used to. It feels almost as comfortable as my normal grip and allows me to take advantage of these paddles for crouch spamming and other advanced techniques. So essentially, when I'm holding the controller, my fingers are off the paddles and straight. And then when I need to use the paddles, I then move my fingers to move the paddles, to hit the paddles. The three benefits of this grip are the following. Your fingers are facing the same direction, so I only need one back paddle for crouching. So this is how I was holding the controller with one paddle. The problem with this grip is that after a few minutes, I would feel a lot of stress in my fingers and hands. Ergonomics is very important, and this grip is not a natural way to position your hand and fingers. Over time, I think this grip would have caused me some health issues. Try holding your fingers like this for even 5 minutes. Now imagine doing that for 5 hours. It is like the Vulcan greeting in Star Trek. Some people can do that easily, but many people like myself can't. So this grip was working for me in the game, but it was creating a lot of stress on my hands. Your fingers are entirely off of the paddles until you actually use them. This is important because having my fingers on the paddles all the time is hard for my brain to process in most of the situations in which I don't need the paddles. I have a tougher time figuring out which finger I need to move. Over time, perhaps my muscle memory would adapt, but it would take too long for me. But now that I don't have my fingers on the paddles most of the time, I don't need to completely rewire my brain to use the controller effectively. And number 3, this grip gives you all of the stability you need to move and aim well. When you move the sticks, the controller needs to be firm in your hand. When you switch from a regular controller to a controller with back paddles, you instinctively want to hold the controller like you used to by creating grip with your fingers, but you end up holding the controller loosely in your hand, so you don't accidentally press the paddles. But this looser grip is bad for game performance because you don't have enough stability to move the analog sticks in an accurate way. Instead of creating stability and grip with your fingers, like I normally would, in my modified grip, I get that stability by placing pressure on the sides of the controller with the palms of my hand. I also wanted to cover 2 good alternatives to my recommended grip. First, I designed these shorter 3D printed paddles so that I can put all of my fingers on the grip like I normally would. These 3D printed paddles work for crouch spamming, but they don't work quite as well as the longer paddles that come with the controller. Some of you out there might really like the shorter paddles, so I included a link to the 3D print files in the description of the video. Second, the paddles on the Fusion Pro stick to the bottom using magnets. So this is how you can hold the controller most of the time, with your fingers under the paddles. Then when you need to use the paddles, you can slide your fingers on top like this. I think this is a very viable alternative to my recommended grip, but it does take a little bit of time to transition your hand back and forth, which might be too long for you. And my last tip for getting used to a controller with back paddles is to create a new account and play on that new account for a few days. Your main account has a lot of skill-based matchmaking in the public lobby. This is going to make it tougher to get used to a new controller with paddles. The games in a new account are a lot easier, and that is what you need in the beginning with a new controller. So let me know below how you hold the PowerA Fusion Pro or Xbox Elite controller and whether you like my recommended grip. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.